To be on terra firma is a Latin expression meaning to be on ground that is firm. There was a man from Boston who was afraid of flying, and his line used to be, "The more firma, the less terra." There are people, maybe even here today, who are afraid of flying. Former President Ronald Reagan was afraid of flying, and yet he needed to. He was interviewed one day on Air Force One and asked if he had overcome his fear of air travel. And he answered the reporter by saying, "No. In fact, right now, I am willing this plane to stay above the ground." We all have fears. We all do. They can be varied. They can be ones we have in common. But we've got them. I was reading one psychologist's report that was saying that for some people, they have a greater fear of standing in front of a crowd and speaking than they do of death. Now, I don't know whether that's any of you or not. I don't know how many of you would like to trade places with me right now. But we've all got fears. And our fears, if they're not managed, can really limit us. There's some common fears. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of looking foolish before other people, the fear of getting hurt, the fear of being alone, the fear of intimacy, the fear of change, the fear of other people not understanding. That's just a partial list. But they can be very limiting things. And that's why the words of Jesus in tonight's gospel I find so assuring, and I hope that you do too. Jesus is talking about fear, and he tells us 3 times in tonight's gospel, don't be afraid. Fear not. He says, are not a couple of sparrows purchased for a small coin, and yet not a single one of them falls from the heavens without your heavenly Father's knowledge. So remember, Jesus is telling us, you are worth more than a flock of sparrows. If God watches over a sparrow, why would he not watch over us? We fear. Sometimes, really, our fears are kind of pointless when you stop and think about it in rational moments. One writer said that of all the fears we face, about 60% of them are things that never materialize. We worry and they never happen. Of the remaining 40%, he says, 20% of them are already behind us. Another 10% of them are so petty, they really don't matter. There's another set of them that, well, we can't do anything about. And then there's the last bit, 5%, that quite actually we have very little to worry about. 5% rather than 95%. And yet we spend so much time worrying about these other things. And that's the good news of tonight's gospel. Don't be afraid. Don't let fear hold you back. Don't spend inordinate amounts of time worrying about things that are not going to happen, or that you have no control over, or are so petty. Just be concerned about the things that really matter. But why do we worry? Sometimes it's because we don't believe in ourselves.